What's up, everybody? Welcome to a special summer episode of Our Two Cents. Chris Dobson, Gerry Green. We are coming at you live from the summer. Gerry, I hope the summer's been treating you well. We decided to delay these things. We're going to put out a couple between now and the time we're going back because we feel a lot's gone on. And with the Olympics about to start, it was time to get back on air, man. How's your summer?
Well, terrific, Chris. I'm getting as much golf in as possible, and the weather's cooperated.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. How's the game?
Improving? How's that for a word?
Love it. Love the answer. All right, let's get this thing started because we've got a lot to talk about. And we're going to start off on a topic that is going to be near and dear to everybody's hearts within the Rogers family, Rogers TV family. And that is how abysmal the Toronto Blue Jays are. We're at the halfway point of the Major League Baseball season. You know, the All-Star break came and went. And in your opinion, has there been a bigger disappointment? Like, you'd have to grade them an F at this point throughout the season, would you not?
Oh, definitely, Chris. What are they? I don't know, 10 games below 500 in the cellar of the American League
and
East.
10 games out of a wild card spot at this point.
10 games out of a wild card spot. You know the three teams that are worse than them in the American League, Chris? I'll run them down here for you. The Chicago White Sox, who a couple of seasons ago with Tony La Russa, the main man, supposedly with a stacked lineup, is the worst team in the American League Baseball. The other two teams, Chris, are out west. The LA Angels, who, of course, just lost Ohtani and haven't replaced him and just have Trout there and still continue to tread water near the cellar of the American League West. And the other one is Moneyball, the Oakland A's, who are the farm team for the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. Those are the only three teams, Chris, when you put it in that perspective, those are the only three teams that are worse than the Blue Jays in the American League of Baseball. Now, to go from a wild card contender to where they are now and put on the show during the offseason that they were going to do something that never transpired, and whether or not it was true or not, I'm a conspiracy guy. You know, it's just sad. It's just sad to watch them, you know, lose 3, win 1, stop a losing slide, maybe win 2 and go on a 4-game losing. It's just hard to watch. I love baseball. I still do watch them.
Right, but okay, so the trade deadline is coming up. We're a week away now from the Major League Baseball trade deadline. There's been a lot of speculation about whether or not the Jays were going to clean house. What should they do? I mean, I even saw the interviews with Vladdy even at the All-Star game, and he gives you that typical political answer like, look, it's a business. I would love to stay in Toronto, but I get it. Bo Bichette did the same thing on television the other day. I mean, you can't think what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. Well, at the end of the day, nothing has changed here. This offseason, at the very beginning, the biggest criticism they received as an organization was, well, the Jays didn't make any moves in the offseason. Meanwhile, the division got stronger, but nothing changed here. And then I would have to say, as of late, look, Vladimir Guerrero outside, it looks like he's battling a bit of an injury there, but that's undisclosed and nobody seems to know. But he hasn't played great ball all season up until at least recent. Bo Bichette played okay, but they're not getting the help they need. I mean, I saw Kevin Kiermaier announce that after this season, I mean, again, I get it. He's retiring after this year's over. But what does this organization have to do? Do they have to sell the assets? Do they have to rebuild properly? Does this start at the management level down? Like, I just don't get it. They were supposed to be good for the last 3 years.
Yeah, but you're seeing a trickling in of some of the prospects, Chris, and I think they're a bright light for me during this regular season so far. So if they tear it down, don't matter to me. I think some of the prospects are coming off. That what started with Davis Snyder. It started with him, but now it's continued with not only arms on the mound and shortstops and third basemen. It will, if they let that develop, fine. I don't care if they get rid of whoever they get rid of. And if they need to do anything at all, just wait to the end of the season and let things ride itself out. Just, I think Kikuchi's probably in the highest slot there that's possibly could get traded because he's a left-handed starter and they're very valuable and he's having a decent season. So
he is.
The Blue Jays are a subject that is hard to talk about. And can we move on?
Sure, we can actually. What I do want to talk about, because I know that every time one of these seems to roll around, we're shooting a show. The All-Star game came by. Your thoughts on the All-Star game? Because in my opinion, the Major League MLB All-Star game to me is the best of the All-Star games. Now, that being said, they had a massive decline in viewership this year. If you look at things like how can they make it better, you look at things like the home run derby, prime example, right? We don't see the stars we used to see in the 90s. Our producer, God love him, put these notes together for us. If you look at the 1999 home run derby participants, you had Ken Griffey Jr., Mark McGuire, Larry Walker, Sammy Sosa, and Noma. If you look at exactly how this whole thing plays out, I mean, what did they have this year? Alonso. Alonso was the guy who shouldn't even have been there. Vladdy Guerrero, now again, whether it's an injury or not, he wasn't there defending his crown. Where's the Aaron Judges? Where's the Shohei Otanis of the world? Where are these guys, and how are they not being forced to compete? Because look, at the end of the day, it's your job. Yes, it's an all-star game, but the all-star game is for the fans. You got to find a way.
Yeah, they don't make them as tough as they used to, Chris, and none of the stars back in the day would ever miss. And they were running on AstroTurf back then, but they would never have missed anything to do with an All-Star game. It's a competition at the All-Star game, be it the home run derby. They wouldn't miss that for anything. But when you talk about the majors, the four major sports, including NHL in this. An organization, Major League Baseball, it really hasn't touched a thing to do with the game itself. Think about it now. NFL doesn't even like having a Pro Bowl anymore. It's kind of like a flag football game. The NHL's turned it into a 3-on-3 and see how many goals you can score and how many fancy plays can be made. Basketball, they play no defense. It becomes 201 to 200 in an all-star game, which is no fun either. Baseball's stuck to the prime things. But maybe baseball could try a few of the skill competition type of things besides home run derbies that the NHL does. Let's see if an outfielder can hit a spot from the outfield on a high fly ball and see how quickly he can get it to the plate. Let's see how quickly a tandem can turn a double play. Let's, some other things like that where you can see the skills of the players that we don't see every day, or it's a competition you can make of regular skills that can be enhanced by let's have a competition and see who's the best at them. Just like, so they can take a little bit from the NHL and see the skill competitions that the NHL is fully engaged in, and maybe sprinkle that into the Major League Baseball. But I've liked Major League Baseball. The game itself, they haven't done a thing. Maybe home run derby and some skills competitions, and then have the regular game. It's a work in progress, but I think they could enhance it for sure.
I know I'm one of the only few people out there, and I know this based off conversations I've had with all of my friends. Do you remember when the All-Star game, the Major League Baseball All-Star game, meant the winner of the All-Star game got home field advantage in the World Series?
Yeah.
Now, do I think that's a bit aggressive? Sure. I think that's a pretty big prize. But at least when you're doing something like that, all of your stars are going to play because there's something on the table. Like, it's not just $1 million. These guys don't need the money. They're there, make it competitive, figure out a way to bring that All-Star game back. I absolutely love your ideas. I think it's great. But they got to find a way, because I do agree with you. The game hasn't changed. And with baseball, it is what it is. It's an All-Star game, but it's still the game of baseball, and it's not just a fluff piece. Anyways, I wasn't sure, because with the ratings down this year as bad as they were, I mean, it's losing its pizzazz, but they got to figure it out.
Well, you can't throw national anthem out like that either. Some people might have turned it off before the game started. So, anyways, let's move on, Chris.
Let's move on. All right. Quickly, before we move on to something else, I got to ask. We got to talk about the Guardians. I mean, how are they always that good, Gerry? They seem to be just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, it is. And again, it's about building from within and having a good system and drafting well and developing well. And
they remind me a lot of the Tampa Rays, but Tampa's done year after year after year.
Tampa Bay Rays have some down years too, but they've developed players that again have gone on to play on the for bigger money at other places. So it's a similar thing going on in Cleveland, but Cleveland entertains its fans because they're in the top of the standings, and nobody can criticize them if they don't win the championship. They've been close a couple times, but at least they're trying and been there every year, and that's consistency, and that's what you got to be happy for as a fan.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's exciting too. I mean, I think Jays fans looked at it back and forth when Alex Anthopoulos went to Atlanta, excuse me. But either way, I agree. Cleveland's been fun. They draft well. They do it right. Anything else in baseball before we move on, or anything else you want to talk about?
No, plenty of baseball. That's
perfect. All right, let's talk quickly about the National Hockey League. Let's get a bit of a summer catch up because there's been a lot of moves since our last show that we've recorded. What ones have you liked? What ones have you kind of been like, that was a little ticky-tacky? I mean, I'm going to start with Steven Stamkos and how he was basically shown the door in Tampa. I didn't like it. I don't like the way it was handled. I know this is old news, but good on him going to Nashville. Rumor had it that Tampa had offered him $3 million a year to stick around. He signs $8 million a year in Nashville. I mean, to me, that's just disrespectful for a guy who bled your franchise and was captain of your franchise for a long time. Didn't like it. The move I did like was Markstrom going to New Jersey. I like them picking up that goaltender. I feel bad for Jake Allen because now he's back to taking a back seat again. What about you? What moves did you like? What moves did you hate?
Well, Stamkos was a love-hate for me. I think Nashville spends too much, Chris. But I appreciate the talent of Stamkos, and I appreciate he had to move on because he is still worth a lot more than $3 million a year.
So last year.
Right. So I don't begrudge, but a little much, or you're really trumping in there is Nashville, because Nashville, they made the moves. And the one I hate the most is the Boston Bruins and Elias Lindholm. Not only the amount of money they're giving him, but the term they're giving him. And they think he's going to fit in with Pasternak and do his thing there because, he had that big season where he had Monahan on one side and Kachuk on the other in Calgary, and he really hasn't done anything since. And I don't think he fits in now. Sometimes when a player puts on a Boston uniform, they change. But I don't know if Elias Lindholm, who started in Carolina, went to Calgary and then Vancouver. And I really feel sorry for Vancouver and all they spent to get him. If you look back, Chris, at that trade, they spent a lot of stuff to keep him. But it didn't look like they were trying hard to sign him, because once they saw what he'd done while he was there and they got a close-up view, maybe he wasn't their cup of tea. But I love what Vancouver did in getting DeBrusk from Boston. I think he's going to fit in beautifully. I like the term. I like the amount. I think that was a great move. And everything Edmonton's done. I like the fact that they pick up Skinner. They Arvidsson. They re-signed Perry. They got Janmark under contract. They got Henrique under contract. That big third line they had there is still connected. So they've done some subtle things in Edmonton, and I think they might be done, but otherwise, the one I hate the most is the Elias Lindholm deal in Boston, from my perspective.
Yeah, that's a good one. You talked about Nashville and the other moves they made. I completely forgot that they acquired Jonathan Marchessault also. I mean, they are loading up. That's crazy. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I like what the Oilers have done specifically. I mean, you kept what you needed to keep. I love the Corey Perry re-signing. I think that's great. He played his role to a T in the postseason, and by bringing in Skinner and by bringing in everybody else that they had to perform, they got a taste of the finals. Connor McDavid's going to try to get them back there ASAP. They're going to try to go back. They're going to try to get back to the finals 2 years in a row. Surprising that the Leafs haven't done a whole lot. I was surprised that Tyler Bertuzzi left. That shocked me a little bit. I thought that they would have found a spot for him. Can they go in with the roster they have now and compete, or do they have to make a move? Do they have the money to make a move?
No, Chris, it's all about a culture change there. And so much discussion of Mitch Marner all the time. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, Chris. The Dallas Cowboys of the NFL and the Toronto Maple Leafs of the NHL, Canada's team and America's team, have some similarities in how they drag their feet on doing some things. I think CJ Lamb, just to get off the topic, is trying to get a new contract in Dallas, one of their best receivers, and they're having difficulty doing it or responding to him. Here, Mitch Marner cannot stay in Toronto. Not after everything that's happened, Chris. The trigger has to be pulled, and he has to move somewhere for them to have an opportunity, because you cannot continue with the culture that they have there with those four players, and you know which one I'm talking about. Something has to change. There has to be an injection of new life in that top four. I don't know who it is, but Mitch Marner cannot stay in Toronto, and eventually I think it will get done.
Let me ask you this. If I'm Mitch Marner, why the hell do I want to stay there?
Yeah.
I mean, he's been ripped apart in the media nonstop since the playoffs. And all of a sudden they're talking about bringing the core four back and running it back again. Again, all rumors are showing that these four guys will be back in Toronto to compete for another title. Not for another title, for a title, excuse me. I got to figure it out. I dig in there. I don't know what they're going to do, but at the same time, I think, I don't mind Joseph Wall between the net. I think I'm fine with that, but you're right. They've got to do something with the core four. I think it's time to move a big contract and bring in a couple smaller contracts to handle that deal. I think you just build around them. And then Tavares' contract's up after next season, I believe. So they'll shed
And
some
they're
money
throwing a
there.
lot of weight on the top of Tanev's shoulders, too.
Absolutely.
Again, one of these older, tough defensive type players, and they've done this before. And see if he can answer any of the questions on the blue line for them.
So let's move on because we still have a few things to talk about. And before we get into it, and the biggest one, of course, is the Summer Olympics. They are starting this week. I know, as Canadians, everyone looks forward to the Winter Olympics here. I'm a fan of the Summer Olympics. I think it's awesome. It'll be curious to see how this whole thing plays out. I mean, if you go back outside of like Canadian Winter Olympics, obviously the golden goal in Vancouver, if you can think of an Olympic moment, what stands out in your mind? And I mean, to me, it has to be the cover of that Sports Illustrated, Michael Phelps, the most decorated athlete of all time. I mean, that's so exciting to me. And I think it's awesome that the Olympics are kicking off this week. I mean, I don't know if you're a big Summer Olympics guy, what events you like, what you're in for it, Donovan Bailey, Canada. You got to remember those days too, right? That's huge.
Mm-hmm. The pool's a big thing for me. I mean, you mentioned Phelps. I love the pool. Not only the racing of whatever stroke they're using, but I like the diving too. I love anything to do with the pool when it comes to the Olympics. The other big thing I like, Chris, is the track and field. I mean, Usain Bolt's always been the biggest star ever. Now, he's not at the Olympics this year, I don't believe, anyways. But track and field of any venture is great for me, be it the racing or the shot put, discus, pole vaulting, the decathlon, whatever it might be. Track and field is fascinating to me. And also I like volleyball. And I'm not just talking about beach volleyball, which is a great Olympic sport too. I like the indoor volleyball, specifically the women's volleyball can be very entertaining. And Canada has a very good team in that category. So those are the three things that I like from the Summer Olympics. And more specifically, the pool and the track are number 1 and 2 for me.
I swear it's like you were reading my notes as you said that, because I have them in that exact order. I wrote swimming, track, volleyball. Those are the things I also love to win. I just think it's fun. It's a nice break in the summer too, because it happens in this lull where the only thing on TV right now is Major League Baseball.
Is Blue Jays baseball. Yeah, so I now can, for the next 2 weeks,
and I'll tell you, MLS
it starts on the 26th, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, it starts on the 26th.
I tell you,
I can have Olympic sports to watch every night, and Paris, I think, is about 5 or 6 hours ahead of us. Yeah, something like that. So we'll be getting stuff at good times, anyways. And they always have the recap shows, anyways. But anyways, the Olympic sit down and watch 2 or 3 hours of the Olympics every night. I look forward to that.
Yeah, I'm with you there, brother. I'm with you there. I can't wait. It's some of my favorite times. Like you said, it's on every night. There's nothing never on, even if you're not interested. Now, once the Olympics is over, you'll never watch these sports again for 4 years till they come back. But overall, it's there. All right, we got to talk golf. We got to move on quickly. I want to get your thoughts on the British Open, because I know as a big golf guy, you told me in the intro you've been playing a lot of golf, and every time we have this conversation, you watch a lot of golf. What were your thoughts on the British Open?
It made us guys who play every day smile a little bit because of the weather conditions and how these guys couldn't do the routine things that they always do, like hit par fives in 2. They had to take 3 shots to get on the par fives. Had to. They had no other alternative, hitting drivers off the fairway to try to get to a hole 250 yards away in a stiff wind and rain. I loved that part. I loved it very much. The British Open is a brutal, tough golf, and you see who's who. And Alexander Schauffele withstood everybody by being consistent. He was being consistent. He was good around the greens, and now he's got 2 majors this year. Who would have thunk that? Evander Schauffele to me was somebody who was in the background most of the time. Won a few tournaments here or there, but tip my hat to him.
So let me ask you this then. Xander Schauffele winning this thing, I'm not going to say secretly and under the radar, but is his season almost impressive as Scotty Scheffler's has been?
Well, 2 majors compared to Scheffler with a major and multiple other tournaments. Scotty's been on a tremendous roll.
Yeah, I fully agree. You know, you've got a couple tournaments coming up as well. If you look at how they're all playing out, you got the Century, the American Express, and vice versa. So there's still a lot of golf left we're going to get to see, but we'll talk about it later. But right now, let's move on. It's time for the Atlantic scene and our 2 cents. Take it away.
The Atlantic scene, of course, always focuses on baseball, and why not? Here we are in late July. The New Brunswick Senior Baseball League is always tight and has been tight all season long. The standings indicate so as Charlottetown sits on top at 13-8. Yes, the Charlottetown Islanders play in the New Brunswick Senior Baseball League. Moncton Mets are next at 10-8. Fredericton's at 11-9. Chatham got a big win last night, or the other night rather, over Fredericton. They're 7-8, and St. John sits in the cellar at 4-12. There's an interesting games of the week to keep an eye on this week, and it happens in Chatham, where uniquely the St. John Alpines are coming to Chatham for a Friday night doubleheader. Let me say that again. Usually when St. John comes to Chatham, they play on a Sunday afternoon and an evening, or a Saturday afternoon and an evening. But because the way rain has played havoc with the schedule, they have to come on a Friday night. So picture this. Game one starts at 7:30. The other night, game one ended at 10 o'clock. So you'd be starting game two probably 15 minutes later, and it's after midnight before game two is going to begin, or end rather. And it's a Friday night. It's the Friday night party at Ironman Field. It should be interesting. They never had a doubleheader at night, and they've not had very many home games on a Friday night. It'll be unique, and we'll report on that next week on the Atlantic scene. Meanwhile, the New Brunswick Junior Baseball League, the St. John Junior Alpines seem to have wrapped things up at 14-7. St. John, Fredericton rather, is at 10-9. Moncton Mudcats, the Junior Mudcats, are 10-10, and Chatham sits in the cellar with 6-14. But the regular season is going to come to an end tonight. It happens in Moncton, where Fredericton's in there to take on the Mudcats, and that will conclude the regular season. Now, in the next week, it's to the Nationals for the St. John Alpines. They'll go to Dartmouth to take part in the Nationals and representing New Brunswick. It starts next Thursday, August 4th, and runs to August 14th in Dartmouth at Beasley Field. I always like to say Beasley Field. And then when they come back, the playoffs start in New Brunswick. They'll be best of fives, and they'll start August 7th. St. John will take on Chatham, so 1-4 and 2-3. That's the Mudcats. And Fredericton play best of fives in New Brunswick Junior Baseball U22, or they call it 22U baseball in the province. Chris, that's the Atlantic scene. How about your 2 cents this week?
Well, my 2 cents are as follows, and we're going to go down the path of giving yourself an edge to win. And this isn't, before I tell you why, I want to go down in some famous situations and stories of other sports where you hear uses of certain ways to cheat, if you would, Gerry. I mean, the Patriots have done it time and time again. The Houston Astros won a World Series that way. The reason I'm bringing this up is the defending women's champion from the soccer perspective. And of course, they were caught using a drone against New Zealand, of course, with the Olympics coming up. And my thoughts are, one, why do you think it's okay, or why would you think you could pull something like this off in a situation where, you're on the world's biggest sports stage? With the way the internet works today, you're going to see it, and it's a drone. Now, I was doing a little research on this story, and the reason this is kind of a hot topic was, Canada soccer analyst Joseph Lombardi, he was the one who was claimed accredited with this drone. Problem was, he's not accredited to Team Canada Soccer in any which way, shape, or form. And why I'm bringing this up is, why would you think you can get away with it? Now, the result of this is going to be an investigation's been launched. The Canadian women's soccer coach, Bev Priestman, she's removed herself from Thursday's Olympic Games opener against New Zealand at this point. 2 staff members for Canada have been ousted. That's assistant coach Jasmine Mander and, of course, the analyst Joseph Lombardi. The Canadian Olympic Committee said Wednesday in a statement, it accepted Priestman's decision to not coach the opener in Saint-Étienne, France. But the shakeup came after the COC's review of a drone incident. So I just don't understand. You're on the biggest stage in the world, and if you think you need that competitive edge, and I get it. I mean, you want whatever edge you can have. But how could you think for 2 seconds a drone, in fact, I believe there was 2 drones flying overhead, you weren't going to get caught? Why are you such a donkey? You're the defending champions. Now, I think that's safe to say that a chance at repeats gone out the window. That's done. But overall, I just don't get it. And I know you're looking for the edge, Gerry. I know you need it. I know you want it, but why? Just why? It's just a terrible way to taint Canadian soccer. I wish you could figure it out. I wish they didn't have to be so stupid. It's a tarnish for us, and I absolutely hate it. That's my 2 cents. Would love to hear yours. What's going on in your world? What are your 2 cents this week?
Well, my 2 cents this week, Chris, focuses on sports on TV, and more specifically, the sports that people say are very dull. How can you watch that on TV? Of course, number one is curling. People wonder why Gerry watches curling. Well, I like curling. And number two, people say, how can you watch golf on TV? That is so boring. It's like watching paint dry. Well, new technology, I think, has to be acknowledged to make your golf viewing experience much better. And if you haven't checked out golf on TV lately, you're missing out. And I specifically talk about the TrackMan. The TrackMan is the device that when the player hits the ball, you see how it's flying in the air, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. And it is fascinating. The history of TrackMan goes back to 2003 by golfers Close and Morten Jorgensen. Now, their radar engineer they got on hand was Frederick Tulix. Now, Tulix worked with the tracking of bullets and missiles using Doppler radar. The Jorgensens thought, well, let's contact him and see if we can get him to use it to track a golf ball. And sure enough, they have. The technology is also used in baseball. You can see it on home run hits and so forth. The baseball is using it. But in golf, they use it live. They get behind the player, whether it's on the tee, whether it's in the fairway, wherever it might be, and show you the track of the ball. I find it fascinating. I know as a kid or a younger person, when you admired the ability of the cameraman to follow the golf ball in the air and watch eventually where it lands. Well, that technology is still being used. TrackMan is the advancement on it and makes the watching of golf on TV, a sport that I love, even better. I tip my hat to TrackMan and the way golf is produced on TV in 2024. Chris, that's my 2 cents. For Chris, I'm Gerry.